Oh, welcome back, everyone. We've got a super special episode today. We've got the amazing Deborah Salisbury with us, who is owner, founder, CEO of the Reading Doctor. What's the right title, Deborah?
Those, I think. All
All
of
of them. Love
yeah,
it.
I know, but all of them are feel a bit, ooh.
Okay, so title hoarder, Deborah Salisbury wants every single title going. We love it. Um, I love spending time with you, Deborah. It's always one entertaining. We also have great conversations, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this space with you and just seeing where it takes us because I think this could go off at tangents, which
Quite
I'm
like,
really looking forward to.
yeah.
I just said to Deborah before that I think that I need to start recording from the off because there's conversations and funniness and I suppose just general happiness that happens before we press record, which is why often we start. I don't know if people are watching or listening, but if you're watching, you'll just see people usually be just full of smiles and laughing, but as we say, welcome, because it's the second welcome that we do. I'm definitely going to start recording them. Right, Deborah, let's get down to business, shall we?
Okay, let's do
Okay.
that.
Let's start with the Reading Doctor, how that started.
Yeah.
And I've got a load of questions just about the business side of the Reading Doctor, as well as like the mission behind it. So because I know there is a deeper mission behind it all, and it's that kind of marrying up those two things together to make a success of it, which is often where people struggle. So tell us a little bit about the Reading Doctor and how it started.
Well, I have had a really good think about this because the Reading Doctor as a franchise is 5 years old. So I had a bit of a reflection at that
Okay.
point. And I actually thought, and I can't believe it's taken me this long to realize, so many people say this, my whole life has led me to this. It's
Mm,
like it was a calling. And if I look back at my whole life, from when I was really tiny and my dad read stories to me, and then learning to read and finding that really difficult, but not really focusing on that so much because my mum made sure we had all the Ladybird book scheme before I
mm.
started school. She found out that's what they were using. Um, she got me all the flashcards. She took me to the theatre when she could, well, pantomime. And so she brought stories to life, which didn't focus on the mechanics of reading. Yeah, and my dad reading me bedtime stories. So I've always loved story. And then yeah, at primary school, reading was okay because, again, I went to a brilliant primary school, just a state little small village primary school where everything was about learning for meaning, like with
Yeah.
meaning. So we had animals, we had peacocks,
Oh, wow.
we had like this mad animal lady
Where
who was
was it, Deborah? Where was
it
this?
was in Nottinghamshire
Okay.
Village, Keyworth, and when health and safety wasn't even a consideration. I mean, I remember thinking I was going to die when a goose was chasing me when I was on bird duty. So, yeah, but it laid the foundations um, for reading, because that we would have authors come into the school. So we had the Gumdrop Car, we had Helen Cresswell came in she did My Aunt Polly by the Sea and the Bongleweed, and we made the Bongleweed, the whole hall was turned into like a Bongleweed jungle. Every family knitted a square of My Aunt Polly by the Sea's scarf. So, and we had made puppets that went with her book. So, at primary school, although I was a struggling reader, it was never really flagged because I just kind of embraced myself in all the other aspects of learning to read. And I actually did really enjoy, we had these SRA comprehension cards. And now I know they work with like the book band colours. But I really liked those because I knew where I stood. I knew I was reading a passage that was at my level because you
Mm.
couldn't move up to the next level if you weren't ready. And so I could answer the questions about the text. So, and I'd love to get hold of a pack of those. So that was my primary school experience of learning to read. Then when I went to secondary school, that was when it was flagged up that I was going to be put in like the remedial group, it was called. which was
Great name. Like,
yeah, really inspiring. And that was behind the big 1970s Hessian curtain. And, that's where all the
mm,
special kids had their sessions. So, yeah, that was, and I knew I was really like what you would say behind now, which again is not a nice term, but I was
mm,
really struggling. Um, but I developed lots of coping strategies, like avoiding reading out loud in class by
yeah.
going to the toilet, um, pretending I wore glasses when I didn't, and then saying I'd forgotten my glasses. Just, yeah, counting round, working out if it was page by page, working out when it was come round to me and how I could just do something to get out of it. So many, but they weren't really coping. They were avoidance rather than coping. So I've
Mm,
got real empathy for the reluctant, not reluctant, that's the wrong word because I wasn't reluctant, but the struggling reader. Um, and then when I went to university, amazingly, I've skipped by A levels, managed to get into the best sixth form because they had the best parties. That was the only reason I wanted to go to that college because I heard they had the best parties. I didn't have the grades to get in at all, but I went and had an interview and I just said, look, I know if I'm choosing subjects I love, I'll work my socks off. And I did scrape my A levels enough, but I didn't have the confidence to go to university. And I thought it's fine. I'll be a nursery nurse. That is absolutely fine. I was nannying in my holidays. I was looking after. Actually, I haven't touched on the world of tutoring, and the world of tutoring came into my life when I was 14. Because when I was 14, 15, and 16, I used to go round to a piano tutor's house and look after her four children while she was tutoring.
well, okay.
Now, like I'm a mother, I was thinking, gosh, I was like an angel because I'd turn up, I'd do their homework with them, I'd cook their dinner, take them to swimming lessons, brownies, wherever.
Wow.
Yeah. So I
Mm,
did that sort of half three, probably till six. I think it was nearly like it was most days. I'd just go back there and I'd do that and then I'd go home later on. So I got the work ethic. I also saw somebody successfully running a tuition business with four
mm,
children because I know a lot of people now might think, I can't do it. I've got young children. They need me at that time.
mm.
Actually, it worked really, really, really well. Um, and then went to university, wrote my first essay. The head of English, because I did actually choose to, I did a B.Ed in English and media studies. And he called me in and he said, has anyone ever mentioned dyslexia to you? And I was like, well, my mum can't really read very well or write very well. Um, and I have always struggled. And he was brilliant. He was a real joker. He he used to read the Peter and Jane books in a really kind of try and be careful what I say, in a really unusual, sort of slightly provocative way, a really funny way. Again, probably wouldn't get away with it now, but he made light of it, of how like quite boring they were, and then we were set tasks called DARTs, which is directed activities related to texts, where we were in groups, we got a text and we did the book Amazing Grace, and we could basically pull all the good stuff out of it and do history and art and drama. And again, books were brought to life. So it was that like it was that the whole thing that for me, reading should be about getting the message from the page, bringing it to life, embracing it, enjoying it. And it was like that for most of my career in teaching until the phonics screening check came in. Then it kind of killed that a bit. So yeah, and I can't do, I know phonics is a part of learning to read, and obviously I did teach phonics. I taught phonics in 1993 when I don't think, it wasn't like a separate thing. You just taught it as part of doing handwriting. But I can't do anything that I don't truly believe in, and that, I have to do everything with integrity. So I couldn't be delivering those phonics lessons every day and drilling them to pass the check.
Deborah, I'm going to go back a little bit if that's okay. This
Yeah,
whole like storytelling, bringing the story to life,
yeah.
and there's something really magical about that. And I've not been in mainstream school for quite a while, so I don't know. I felt like that was we were losing that. I had a little bit of a window in. I was tutoring at a school for a couple of years, and they were struggling for a supply teacher in year one day. And I was walking through, and they was like, "Oh, Rich, can you just go?" I've been a year one teacher. Can you just go and spend the day in year one? Like we really need it.
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, brilliant. I love it. I'm like, I'm gonna have so much fun." And then I saw the plan, and I was like, "Whoa, there's no fun here at all." So we've
Mhm.
got like these 5 year olds who just want to get up and have a little bit of like
Yeah.
fun with their learning, and it was there just doesn't exist. And I was like, well, when are we reading stories? And the TA was like, well, we don't really do that. And I was like, this is awful. We can't
Yeah.
have 5 year olds and not read a book in like one book.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did it anyway. They did say they'd never asked me back to do it because I just had fun with them all day.
Oh, did you? Oh, you did. Did you scrap it? Did you scrap
Oh, scrapped
it?
everything.
Oh,
Yeah, it was. I
brilliant.
did maths and English, what was on the plan,
Yeah.
and even the
No problem.
PE plan. I was like,
Yeah.
this is not what we should be doing with 5 year olds. And it was playing hockey. They're getting the proper wooden hockey sticks out. I'm taller than them. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I do feel like we're missing that, but
Mm.
and we can put that in the educational setting. But what about just in wider life, like as well? Is that something we're losing at home? Because that started with you, with your dad and your mum, and your mum probably
Yeah.
brought those
Yeah.
stories
And
to life
story
because,
time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it is in a lot of families, and I think that is just not that people are neglecting their children. I think it's just
mm,
that modern life has got so busy, and there's so much pressure for everything to be perfect, that people's houses to be perfect, their jobs to be perfect, their children to look perfect. That I'm not saying that not endorsing that, but I think that is the pressure people
mm,
feel, and also both parents having to work full time, that actually they just want to get the children to bed sometimes. And what I can say is I can tell when children have been read to. I don't know whether you feel that. If
yeah.
you, yeah, I can
Because I feel like we lose the fun with reading. Like, so I work a lot with like upper key stage two and key stage three, and I if I said to those guys coming to tuition, I'm just going to read a story, even if it was a fun picture book, I
yeah,
know the reaction I'd get. It would be like, oh, and I find that really sad because I'm
yeah,
like, so
yeah,
much fun in a book. There's so much fun about hearing about how a character, about that character, how the character changes, the fun things that character's going to get up to, the things it's going to do, the people it's going to meet, or the characters it's going to meet. And I find that really sad when we've actually switched off our children from stories and actually storytelling, because I think storytelling is also a skill.
yeah. And there's, speech and language challenges that are around today has a direct correlation with struggling readers. I think, a lot of the children we work with are also under speech and language therapist as well. So, yeah,
Yeah, going back a fair while now, because it was in my early 20s, I worked for Sure Start and we did a reading program in prison because Canterbury still had a prison then.
yeah,
And that was working with dads who they were coming out. So they often had like 18 months, 2 years left because that's the sort of category prison it was. And we would go in, or I would go in, and we would record them reading stories. That was the plan, right?
yeah, yeah,
So we invested all this money in books, equipment, so we could like do the musical instruments and do funny voices, that kind of thing. But I would say probably 80%, maybe slightly more, couldn't read. So all the books were just,
yeah. I can
but
totally believe that.
what
Yeah,
they could do, they'd be like, no, I'm fine, I'll just make up my own.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
did. And it was like, oh my
They
God, this is
had lots of
amazing.
stories.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so they were just off the cuff, or they'd probably be thinking about it during the week if they knew they were coming, and they would still do it. And I look and I think, well, I the story cubes that you can get, like so we play that quite a bit, and we struggle.
Yeah.
Our children are struggling with it, even with prompts, and we need to really bring it back in because I don't know, like the creativity side of it is so.
Well, that's where the phonics only books are killing that as well, which is why, I made the decision. Actually, if I go back to me, like knowing I couldn't work in the system anymore,
Mm,
with the phonics screening check and everything, and year one teachers almost being forced to teach to that check.
mm,
Um, yeah, so around that time, the head teacher identified me as the right person to be put forward to do reading recovery training, which was by far the most transformational thing I've ever done in terms of my teaching, including being at university. I think then I'd been teaching about 12 years, 10 or 12 years. And I thought I knew how to teach children to read. I thought I absolutely knew,
mm,
but not until I did reading recovery training. And so that sort of saved me and kept me in the system for a bit longer because then I was able to go part a job share as a class teacher, but also do reading recovery alongside it. And that was absolutely fantastic because that's all about reading for meaning, building up resilience, problem solving, um, just relating it to the child's own experience, talking about text, comprehension, basically what reading really is. And so that kind of, yeah, that I think that held me a bit longer in the system because I could do that side of things, the things that I knew worked, alongside the things that they didn't excite me, so they didn't definitely, didn't excite the children.
mm,
Um, so that did keep me longer. And then when a new head came along and said, oh, we're not going to do the reading recovery intervention anymore, which was working so, so well for the children who were between 5.9 and 6.3, precisely that. So the reasoning behind that is that those children have had quality first teaching that hasn't worked and their self-esteem is still intact. So if you think about the average sort of 6.5-year-old, they know exactly where they are in relation to their peers.
mm.
And if they can't read, that's gonna damage their self-esteem and everything. So it was that little window, and it was so precise and so strict that you could only take those children, and you took the very lowest, the ones that are so far away from age related. So the ones basically, if you didn't intervene then, they were always going to need extra help throughout their whole career, their whole life probably.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was like, well, when the head teacher said you're going to go back into being a class teacher, I just well, I did do it for a term, but I
Right.
don't do things that I'm not happy with. So that was the most hellish time of my life because I was I was doing it not wanting, knowing I wanted to go out. So I just said, well, you can't make me. I'm leaving and I'm going to do what I know, what is my passion and what I love. And he was the best thing that ever happened really for my career because it gave me that push, but it really wasn't easy. I wasn't myself at all. So I wasn't that happy, positive. But, I went to bed at night like a lot of, people do who want to get out thinking, what am I going to do? This is just awful. It felt like, well, afterwards I can equate it to like a bereavement for the career that I thought I'd have until I was in my 60s. And that's what I'd worked really, 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 really hard to get. And so yeah, it was taking that leap, but there was no way that I wasn't going to make it work. And there was no way that I wasn't going to make it like a proper career. And I mean, I had my cards drawn out in my head of I would be a cleaner in the daytime if I needed to be, but just to bring some money in
Yeah.
because I knew I could get the after school slots booked. I knew I'd already when parents knew I was going to leave, they were asking if I could teach their child. And then I got a bit of an inroad into a pupil referral unit, and that was a bit of who you know. I knew the head of the behaviour service in Bromley, and she invited me in there, and then there was no going back. I did 3 hours, then 6 hours, then 9 hours, and then I kept, so then my day, I didn't actually do my cleaning, but I did do some supply to
Mm.
kind of, I did 2 days supply, but um, yeah, I just went into it thinking, I hate this situation I'm in so much that I don't care what it takes to get me out of it. And we've got a big mortgage, and my money is like, I need to pay half the mortgage. So I can't just say, oh, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work. It had to work. There was no choice. So yeah, it was a challenging time. So when I hear of teachers wanting to get out, I know exactly how that feels.
Where did the business, like, I suppose not idea, I suppose the skills, then the business skills come from, Deborah? Like there's the work ethic, which I think underpins everything.
Yeah.
Clearly you had that, like thinking about how you worked while you was at school.
Mm.
Also that draw towards working with children, was that always there as well? Would you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I'm the eldest grandchild on both sides, so I've always had younger children around me. My mum was a childminder, always absolutely loved working. I babysat my cousins and then babysat neighbours' children when I was, a young teenager. And then I did a nannying job in between my first and second year at university, and that was one of my best summers. So it was a solicitor, a single mum who's a solicitor, and she had a 6-year-old boy, and she just said, "I'm going to give you a budget to go to do stuff with him, every day, and just do whatever you like." And I just had the time of my life, but I got learning into everything. So if we were going on, on a trip, if we were going to the farm, we'd get a little clipboard with some intake pens and stuff. If we did cooking, I'd always get him to read the instructions. So it was all meaningful stuff. I also played a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog that summer.
Did you ever complete it? It's one of the hardest games to complete.
But yeah, so I've always all like it's absolutely, and I also
Mm.
really wanted my own children as well.
Okay.
Waited a little bit for that, to my late 20s to have them. But yeah, it's always been what I knew I needed to do.
So how
Yeah.
did you, when you first started the idea, like moving away from school, and you come up with this kind of the passion of your life, really, by the sounds of things, everything you did led to the reading doctor. How did you marry up the idea with the business skills required? How did you go about that?
Well, my dad's always had his own business. I
Okay.
mean, his little mantra is never make any money for anyone else. And
Amazing.
also always be your own boss. Don't
Yeah.
let anyone tell you what to do. So he's a real eccentric, and he always had his own printing business in the village. So he had a barn, he had massive printing machines, but he did like win a couple of contracts with Marks and Spencer's, printing their tights labels. So he did, but he was really a one-man band, and he tried having other people working for him, employing people, but they just constantly let him down. So he gave me a few like really harsh business lessons. Basically, like, don't rely on people, like rely on yourself, because yeah, that's what you need to do. And he also just gave me his basic accounts book, which were meticulous, like absolutely meticulous, all handwritten, every single thing in and out. And it was like the best sort of introduction, really, to like accounts. But also I saw the freedom, but I saw the pressures as well of having, the financial pressures sometimes of running your own business. And then I had my uncle Charles, who he had his own engineering company, and he absolutely flew with it. And if I needed any help with business, I'd just call him, because he was always, he still is the voice of reason. So
Mm.
I had quite inspirational people around me, and my mum was a childminder. That's she was running her own business as well, and cleaning, and basically just a really, really good work ethic in the family, and
Mm.
just knowing as well that if you're going to go it alone, it's not 9 till 5. that you need to be prepared to go in. But I suppose I didn't really, no, I must have seen it as a business in the beginning because, yes, I did, because I was like, this is me starting a business. I will open a business bank account. I will register it as a business. And so I did. I registered it in December 2012, which was the year I left teaching. And then, so in December, my limited company was set up even before I'd left, actually, because I left at the end of the month.
Oh, so you
Yeah,
really did go at it with that mindset, like from the
yeah.
off. Yeah.
It was a real mindset thing. It was a
Mm.
total mindset thing. And I have still got the piece of paper somewhere where my husband and I went to Brighton and we went to Chocky Wocky Doodah. And I said, I just need to write it all down. And he's very corporate, very businesslike, brilliant. He's a bit of a rebel, really, in the corporate world. But I just said, right, I need to write this down. So he ran off, got a pad of paper, which was lined paper, which annoyed me because I wanted a big, massive, plain sketchbook. But
Freedom.
and a green biro, and I've still got it. And I did it like a mind map. So I've got the reading doctor in the middle with a little cloud, and then I just started doing like all my opportunities, um, and then just a few little projections, and yeah, and it just and the name it with that was created that day, the reading doctor, and then I said, oh, with the G, we could make that into a stethoscope, which it is in the logo. That's a
Mm.
stethoscope. And that's really, it was like, that was it. And then I assessed a friend's daughter. And then, no, I think I assessed her actually in about the October. And she was the one that that said, oh, I'd love you to see her every week. I'd love you to. And then, yeah. But I started from my dining room table, um, then just grew it, and then had enough to build a thing in my garden, really nice, with a toilet in there and everything, a cabin in my garden.
Mm.
And then just did the thing of becoming fully booked. And then knew that I needed to expand. And it was something my sister said. So she was being a bit facetious, really, because she said, oh, it's brilliant, it's fantastic, great that you're reaching like 30 children a week, but you've created something that needs to go out to the world. So you better start thinking bigger, and just sort of left me with that. Um, and I think my curiosity led me to do all my own research around, and I think it was something like what my dad had said about people. I thought, I don't want to employ people. All I know is I don't want to employ people. If people come in with me, I need them to have feel some ownership of it, and for them to be empowered to go on to make it their own. I don't want to be like in full control of
Mm.
people. And then I started looking at licensing and franchising. And then I just phoned my local lawyer and said, I'm thinking of doing this. Am I looking at franchising or licensing? And when I started going into the granular detail of what it was that would be delivered through, really, it's a fully resourced intervention that I created. And I started saying the desk needs to be at least 1.8 meters long, because there's certain things you have to have on the desk, and the child has to sit side by side. And they were like, this is definitely franchising.
Mm.
And then the people come along, I think, in your life at the right time. And I think for people listening, I think if that happens to you, just grab that opportunity. And for me, it was Tim Morris, who was the president of the Tutors Association. Because when I went into tuition, I thought, right, well, what is the best, like what I knew it was an unregulated industry. I can't believe it still is, but it was then in 2012. So no, when I joined the Tutors Association, it was 2000, it must be 2017 or something. And I phoned them and I said, I've got this business model. I know I want to expand. And it just so happened that the president Tim Morris was really familiar with franchising. So he probably spent an hour and a half on the phone with me, just talking about, the pros and cons, and also just listening to what I had to offer.
Mm.
And again, confirming that it was ready to be franchised, because you can't just create a business in, I don't know, six months,
Yeah.
um, and franchise it. I'd been doing it for 7 years, proven, absolutely solid.
Mm.
And actually I've proven it again, because then just before I franchised it, I relocated to the Kent coast, which is an hour and a half from Bromley. And I had no contacts here at all. I didn't know any of the schools. I didn't know any parents. My youngest child was 16, so I wasn't really a, parent of a young child. So I had to start completely from scratch. But again, I had the foresight to plant the seeds before I arrived. So I joined all the local Facebook pages around the Kent, around Whitstable, where I was moving to. And I just posted, like, I'm a tutor, I'm moving to Whitstable in September. This is what I do. I can, I'll be ready to take on children for assessments. And I got a message from a parent who lived in Whitstable, said, can I just bring her to you where you are now?
No
And,
way.
and for
What?
3 months, she drove to Bromley with
Oh my
her.
God.
3 months. And then to top it off, she wrote the most amazing review on this parent page, just about how the reading doctor had transformed her child.
Mm.
And then by the time I got here, by the time I moved here, I had 6 pupils lined up already, as we were unpacking the removal van. So it was me just going, it's going to work, because I did have that reservation, thinking I'm so well known in Bromley. I'm in demand. I'm like the it tutor. Everyone wants the reading doctor for their child who's struggling with reading. And I'm just leaving all of that, just leaving that all behind and relocating. But then luckily I did have somebody who was in Bromley who was ready to jump in and be my first franchisee. And then so the path was laid for her, because the reputation was there, the brand was already there, and I could start from scratch. So I think in terms of people buying into the franchise, I've done it myself, which I always think that's what leadership should be about, is about, I'll sort of show you the way and
Mm.
model it rather than tell you. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it happened, really.
What have been the biggest challenges along the way for the Reading Doctor since you franchised?
Finding the right people, probably,
Mm.
because I am, it is my baby, the brand is my baby, and I need to have the right people representing it. And I'm really good at finding the right people now. And I've got some brilliant reading doctors who have been with me since day one. So the first, second, third, fourth reading doctor, they're all still with me today. So they've been doing it for years. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, finding the right people, because I know they're out there. I know the right kind of people are out there, because they're people like I was, 12 years ago. They want to leave teaching because they love teaching,
Mm.
and because they still want to identify as a teacher, because that really worried me. It's like, you know, going to a party and then set people saying, "What do you do?" and not saying I'm a teacher, because I was so proud to be a teacher.
Yeah.
The first person in both sides of my extended family to go to university. My uncles were wanting to hire a minibus to come down and have a big party. So there was no way I was going to let go of that title of teacher. And luckily I haven't. And yeah,
Mm.
so I get how people taking the leap might feel that,
Mm.
like all that effort of going, all that time you've invested and money you've invested in becoming a teacher. And then, I mean, some people aren't even making it through their training now, are they? Their first year.
No, the ECT stuff has been quite tricky, I think. The stats are showing, and the stat of the first 5 years as well is still quite harrowing.
Yeah,
And I don't know whether that's stemming. I think the latest research was that it's getting better.
right.
I don't know because I don't. I mean, I don't tend to look at it anymore in the same way I used to. I think like if it is getting better, that's great. But I don't think the main issues around classroom teaching has ever really been addressed since the curriculum change in 2012. Since that curriculum change in 2012.
Which is the
Um,
year I left, incidentally.
yeah, did you do the new curriculum?
No, well, I left in 2012, but I saw what was coming, and I absolutely predicted that what we've got now, mental health crisis, school refusers, teachers not wanting to stay. I just had this vision that that was going to be the case, and it came to fruition.
I know we talk the big issues, workload, of course it is, but I also think that so much has been stripped from the classroom, the fun.
Mm,
We used to have a lot, and I was only in there for a year before. I actually was lucky. Went from year 6 to year 2 when the new curriculum came in, and because we were still doing Key Stage 1 SATs, we had a year of grace to do the old curriculum. But I had those 2 years in school where it was just so much fun. Like I loved it. And then the new curriculum came in and it was like, oh, this feels really different, much heavier, a lot more to get through. Some of it I didn't really agree. Again, like what you agree with and what you don't, right? So you end
yeah.
up delivering something that you think this isn't really what I want. This isn't going to
What
work.
they need. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then
I
I
think there's a bit of like a misconception about teachers leaving because of workload. I think it is pointless workload. I think that is
yeah.
the thing. Teachers are prepared to work hard, but what they're not prepared to do, like I wasn't prepared to have 6 pens when I was marking. There's no way I was going to have a purple polishing pen and a golden underline pen. It was, yeah, I just wasn't going to spend
Rubbish.
my
Yeah.
evenings doing that because I don't, actually being with the child, giving them some feedback at that moment,
Mm.
prompting them to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Teaching. It's what we
yeah,
call teaching,
yeah,
by the way,
yeah,
isn't it? Like
yeah,
that in the moment learning. It's just,
yeah.
and I think that's the beauty of tutoring. What I found when I first started to around my it wasn't my tables to travel around to other people's dining room tables
Mm,
was that, oh my God, this is what it was like. I'm making a difference straight away. Like I'm not
yeah,
allowing that to continue, that misconception to build into something that's going to create this big gap. We can do
yeah,
it right now, and it felt really good. That's what I loved in the first place. That was the bit that gripped me around teaching. So yeah, I was a big believer in that. You get that sense of value from it, and then it's I suppose the bit that I struggled with. I'd love to hear your opinion on this, Deborah. Is that money side to it, right? Because I think as a teacher, we go in with I can make a difference. I'm gonna have my
mm,
class, get paid, and it's like a bit of a weird payment thing, isn't it? Like it's good money, but it's not amazing at the same time.
mm,
And then suddenly going into a tuition world where you can get cash rates quite quickly.
mm.
And I felt really uncomfortable about that at the beginning. Did you find that, or was it okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and I would do things like say, oh well, I'll just assess them for free, and I did all of that in the beginning. And then you realize how much people value what you do, and you can't undervalue yourself. And Pete, my husband was a big one for saying, what are you doing? Like the mechanics charging £70 an hour. You're transforming lives.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
it had to be other people saying about, like, telling me the value of the impact that you're having, and how much value would you put on, transforming your child's life in terms of outcomes because they are literate. So yeah, I did have to I'm with you. I felt exactly the same. I mean, when
Yeah.
I went into teaching, I never even thought about the salary, didn't even look it up.
It's
So
drastically changed,
yeah,
isn't
I
it?
didn't even think about it.
I think there's like another whole mindset thing around that,
Yeah.
which I think maybe it's just like a lived experience. I think like we can listen to like people like ourselves and other people who've been on a podcast who have that similar experience with that whole money weird money mindset. I feel like sometimes this is something you used to go and live through, go and experience it, and you work your way through it. I did have support with the money stuff in the end because I had a business coach for a while, and that really helped. Because
Yeah.
again, that's that reframing, isn't it? Like what your husband said. It's like, well, look at what you're
Yeah.
doing, like the impact you're making. You're changing someone's life, literally changing someone's whole life.
Yeah. And you get the feedback from the parents telling you that as well. So and the children, they tell you that as well. So you can't undervalue the
Mm,
service that you offer. Yeah. But yeah, I totally agree with you. When I first started, I was very quick to sort of give things away and
mm,
but actually people respect you more if you've got boundaries around and they just know where they stand.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Deborah, what's next for the reading doctor? What's the because I we when we were chatting before we pressed record, one of the things we were chatting about was that feeling uncomfortable, and sometimes I think we're both grateful for being uncomfortable in our business because it shows
Yeah.
we're doing something outside of our comfort zone. Even though there are times when we go, "Oh, I wish this would stop for a bit,"
Yeah.
and go, I'm not very grateful today, but they're fleeting, and then we get pushed through it, and we get to the next part, and we go, "Oh, I can't believe I was worrying about that before."
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
next for you?
Um, well, next is growth because I've now got 32 reading doctors.
Yeah.
And so it's quite funny because lots of people go, God, you must be so rich. But what I've done, I'm not, what I've done is I've plowed all the money back, or the majority of money back into the business to perfect it, to create more resources. And
Mm,
now I mean, even my reading doctors tell me you don't need to make any more resources, Deborah. We have everything we need. We don't have to get anything from anywhere else. So I'm going to stop putting money back into creating more resources. And I need to just spread the word really and get the right people. So now it's about growth. Now it's a proven business model. People can pick it up, hit the ground running, and now it's about growth. And there's also been, I've had to push myself out of my comfort zone and grow as well. So last year, I made the decision not to spend so much money on any sort of advertising, but just to get myself out there and spread the news of the reading doctor, really,
mhm.
which is really out of my comfort zone. Like speaking in front of people, easy to now you've heard my story to know why I've always really struggled with that. And I've had to have a word with myself and say, you're always telling the children, you're always building up their confidence and giving them resilience and have a go and try new things. So I'm speaking on panels and I'm putting myself forward more and being the voice of the reading doctor, really. So
Amazing.
yeah, that's it, is to just get the word out there. And I really want to get an ambassador. Jamie Oliver's doing a thing at the moment where he is going to make a program about dyslexia, and he's calling, like he's saying, please come forward if you can help. And I'm like, oh, it's me, I can help.
What
But
was,
I can't get to him. I've messaged him. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, getting an ambassador would be really good. Um, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that would be really good.
Like
Getting a
the power of the network. Let's make this happen. Somebody
yeah,
somewhere has a link to Jamie Oliver. Come on,
yeah.
let's make it
I
happen.
think he would be a really good one
Mm,
actually, because he's used his dyslexic strengths,
mm,
his entrepreneurship, his like multitasking, like being a chef is quite a common thing for a dyslexic person to be. He's a people person.
yeah.
He's probably, out of all the children he's got, some of them will be dyslexic because it is hereditary. So he'd
Mm,
have lived it as a parent, as I have as well, because my daughter is dyslexic. So I think getting somebody on board with us, but it's hard because it is a company. It's not a charity, although that would be something I would absolutely love. I would absolutely love to have a charity on the side, where we could get investment for disadvantaged children.
mm,
We do reach those disadvantaged children now because but I want to reach more. So we've just been invited by the head of virtual schools in Kent to showcase the Reading Doctor at their big event at Detling Showground, and they
Oh,
want to.
the Education People show, that one.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, it's a good event, that. A really good
Yeah.
event.
I need to check whether it is called that. It is just for looked after children.
Oh, no, maybe not them.
Yeah, and they're going to invite some looked after children as well, some teenagers. And the reason we've been invited is because they've seen the impact of the
Mm,
Reading Doctor on lots of looked after children across Kent.
mm,
So that could be the start. That could be the start of having some sort of charity arm,
mm,
CIC on the side of the Reading Doctor. But I've only
yeah,
just got to the place now where the Reading Doctor is completely solid and ready to whoosh. Um,
mm,
and then I won't probably be able to stand still for too long before I start thinking about, you know, there's also a possibility of a project that we might be involved with youth offenders as well, which I
mm.
think would be great.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
really great. I mean, we already work with lots of children who've been excluded.
Mm,
So, we often meet, often, and I say often, which is a shame, meet 14-year-olds who've been through our education system and can't read. And
mm.
more than that, not only can they not read, but it's damaged their self-esteem and it's caused behaviour challenges. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. The stat around people in prison and dyslexia and literacy levels is just it blew my mind. It was one of the I always wanted to be a teacher, but I was kind of going down a funny path in my early 20s doing different
yeah.
things. That was to me was I need to go and do this because we need to intervene
Yeah, well, you kind of did with
ASAP.
the Sure Start thing. That was one foot on the step to doing that. Yeah,
Yeah, but I and didn't last long enough. It's a whole story in itself, like in terms of where
mm,
the money went. It was a bit frustrating, but then, and also I felt like people belittled the importance of it. But then I could see what was doing was working with kind of 40-year-olds up to kind of 60-year-old men who were living out like the outcomes of their life because they didn't things were,
yeah,
everybody has a reason why they're in that situation.
yeah.
And but part of that was because they couldn't access the things they needed to access so they could have like I'm going to call an ordinary job in some way because
Yeah, functional. We call it
mm,
functional literacy. And actually, if you at one of the big special schools I work at, well, that I take the Reading Doctor into, we have a no excuses policy, so that every child, no matter what diagnosis they have, will leave that school with a functional reading age. So
mm,
if a reading age of 8 is actually quite functional, like
yeah,
you could read signs when you're walking around.
mm,
um, you can read bus timetables, you can read text messages, letters. So we have a no excuses policy for that. But yeah, we more and more we're getting, like, it is happening more that more
yeah,
children are going through our system. The official statistics, I looked this up the other day, I put a post on LinkedIn about it. They say it's 60% of prisoners have a literacy age below 11, but
mm,
what that below is, I mean,
mm.
some of them could be 5 or not, or completely not, illiterate. So we need to be more preventative rather than reactive.
Yeah, agree. And
Um,
it must
yeah.
be easier, right? And I know bringing money back into it must be cheaper too in the
Oh,
long run.
definitely.
Right.
Yeah. And even if you think about those children who have repeated phonics interventions with an adult 1-to-1 or 1-to-3, or in a group in the corridor, and they have them in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. Think about how much that costs, rather than a short, sharp intervention
Mm,
that could get them to age related and build their self-esteem. So the other day I had my PA, actually just got a PA, just showing off there. Only just got a PA. She when she started working with me, she said, "Oh, my friend's son really struggles with learning to read." And I said, "Oh, this is their nearest reading doctor. Go to them. we all deliver the same intervention with the same resources, the same systems. He'll be in really good hands. And she has said to me, I cannot believe the transformation in that child. He now skips out of school and comes and says hello to me. He didn't used to like start a conversation. And that's what I think education should be about, is empowerment and developing like curiosity and all of those things. So if you look at like the doctor analogy, the side effect of teaching a child to read is that they are more confident, they are more resilient, more problem solving, if they're taught in a way that allows them to be independent. So definitely have gone off on a tangent, but the whole thing, giving back, is what I'm saying, basically, isn't it? If in starting up some sort of charity arm of the Reading Doctor, that's what I'd absolutely love to do. But to do that, that's a whole nother other thing. And I would probably want to create some more resources for that as well.
It never ends, but it sounds like such a great mission, and there've been no stopping you. You've got the platform
No.
and the reputation, and it works, right? So why not?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Deborah, thank you so much for spending this time with us. Really appreciate it. Is there anything that you'd like to share that you haven't had the opportunity to? Something that perhaps you're like, "Oh, I really want to say this."
No, I think I've said everything actually. No, I think that's it.
Excellent. Thank you
Just
so
kind of
much.
watch this space.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
and we will. We
yeah.
definitely will. And then, so part two will be how the CIC is doing
Oh,
soon.
okay. No pressure.
Well, I think you've put it out into the universe now. I
Yeah,
think we need to like
yeah.
make sure it happens, and definitely let me know about the event in Detling.
I
For
will.
the
Yeah, yeah.
SK people, I don't know if it's still the same person, but I used to work with her, like going back many, many years ago. A lovely person, and I know the mission behind that was really, um, yeah, like just loads of integrity because it's so
Yeah,
new.
they
So,
were brilliant. The two women I met were absolutely on my page, and
right.
I didn't have that day available, but I made the day available, and also opened it up to my reading doctors, and there's like 8 of us going.
Love, mate. You say
Yeah,
taking over the place. We love it. Guys,
yeah.
thank you so much. We really appreciate it. I'll speak to you
Okay.
soon.
Thanks, Richard. Bye.